All right. So when it comes to modeling the feet, I generally kind of like the ears and the hands. I do the same thing, and I generally will model it in a new Maya file. That way I'll have I can just focus on the feet. I'll have a really good set of feet. I can save them off as a feet file. And then whenever I need a set of feet, I can just bring them in. In this case, I'm just going to do it right here, but I am going to hide my character so it kind of just doesn't distract me from the feet I'm making. And I already have him in a couple different display layers. I have his eyes on a layer, and I have his body is on this face layer that at the time when I made this, it was just a layer for the face. So I'm just going to rename this from face layer to elf layer, because eventually it'll be the entire elf minus his clothes and eyes, obviously, on this one layer. So I'm going to go ahead and hide those for now, and then I can just focus on the feet. Now I already have in my orthographics, I have some decent, I think that are fairly decent views of the feet. Now he has kind of weird feet. I planned on giving him like this space in between his toes, sort of like monkey feet, since he is something that ideally, probably like climbs trees and like, probably lives in a tree. So I thought that would be a nice little touch. Now, sometimes I'll make orthographic views for the feet, just off of human anatomy, human reference. In this case, I'm not going to do that because I feel like what I have is a pretty decent guide to start with. But I do have on my other screen over here, I just have a Google image search for foot anatomy. And having something like this is always an amazing thing to keep on your screen, no matter what it is you're modeling. And keep going back and checking, and seeing something like this is even good for animation, how the foot is going to deform as it sort of moves around. So keep a sort of a big list of image references on your other screen as you work, and it'll help you out a lot. So when it comes to feet, I generally box model the feet for the most part. So I'm going to start with just a polygon cube with no divisions, just like that. And I'll start in my side view. And I'm just going to start by sort of blocking it out with the minimal amount of sort of information that I need. So I can always come in and add information. I think what I'm going to do is start with something like that, and then I'll extrude out a little bit. Okay, so then I'll jump to my front view. Oops. And I'm going to do the same thing, just sort of scale everything around to fit in that front view a little bit better. Like that. Now grab that face. I will extrude it down. We'll go ahead and take a look at my side view again. And do something like that. And then again, I want to make sure that it's somewhat lining up in my front view as well. It's not going to be perfect, but that's all right. And once I add more geometry, it'll probably end up matching up a little bit better. And then one more time, I'm going to extrude in like this. And this is where it's going to get kind of tricky, because I want this to be sort of round, and I have his sort of little pinky toe starting way back here, and then his big toe is going to be starting a lot further up. So I'm going to grab these points from my front view. I think that's right. No, that is not right. These points from my front view, and then I can move them up to where that big toe will start. And something like that from the side, and then obviously I need to bring it together from the front as well. Now my views don't match up perfectly. That's okay. That's not something I'm super worried about right off the bat. So obviously, you know, it doesn't really look like a foot at all yet. So there's still some tweaking that needs to be done. I probably need to bring this out a little bit. Bring this down to be level. So that's a good start to the foot. Now the next sort of phase is just kind of, before I start working on the toes, is just probably just sort of refining the foot a little bit to get like you know, nice curvature, like the arch of the foot and everything. So if I look at an image like this, so the arch of the foot, and from the top, that's going to kind of arch up. So I'm going to work on this a little bit and try to get this looking decent from the bottom and the top, and then I'll start working on the toes, because at that point I'll have a little bit more geometry to sort of work with. So I'm going to use insert edge loop tool, and this will give me a good start on that arch, so I can come in and sort of bring this up and in. And this is the ankle, so I can start to round these out a little bit. This, even though on the outside isn't really an arch, it's still going to curve in a little bit, so maybe just start to try and emphasize that. Same with the heel. This is generally known with as what's called box modeling. You start with a box and you just extrude and add edge loops as you need them, or as you see fit. And it's important, just like when you're doing the edge loop modeling, the method we used on the head, it's important to constantly come in and when you create points, to make sure you touch every one of those points. Make sure you go in and tweak every one of them a little bit. You don't want to just go in and start adding a ton of points and then going back and trying to edit all of them at once. You want to do just a little at a time rather than all at once. So this would be a pretty good point to like separate, I think, the big toes from from where the little toes are going to be. So I could probably use an edge loop here like that. Rounding out these points a little bit. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm making sure that no point is really going untouched, and I'm editing as many points as I can at a time until, you know, it's starting to look like a foot. Now I'm obviously going to be connecting this to the leg, so I can go ahead and delete these faces, and that will make it look a little bit nicer. Let me smooth it. We have the ankles here, so I can probably go in and start adding a little bit of definition to those ankles. So I think probably what I'm going to do for that is bring these points down. Is I want to add sort of a cross section that goes right in the middle of that ankle and then right in the middle of the other ankle as well. So I'll go ahead and add an edge loop right there and make sure that kind of matches up over here as well. And I see that our foot in general needs some reshaping over here, so I can do that. And it's why it's important to sort of constantly jump back and forth between all of your views, and to constantly look at your reference. So the same thing goes over here. It's just not quite matching up the way I wanted it to. And I'm also, you know, again, I'm looking at foot anatomy images to help me out with this. So that's starting to look a little bit better. For the ankles, what I want to do is basically I want to make an edge flow circle. I want to use these 4 polygons and make an edge flow circle. And the way to do that is to use our multi-cut tool and make a little diamond in the center of those 4 polygons. And then I can do something like that, and then so I'll divide. I have all these ingons that I created, so I'm going to divide those. And then I can space these guys out a little bit. And then I made an edge loop. So if I go in with my insert edge loop tool now here, you'll see that that is an edge loop that goes all the way around. So I'll go ahead and add one right in there like that. And then I can take these guys and sort of pull them out a little bit to emphasize that ankle. Just like that. And then I'll do the same thing for this one over here. So I'll go in and grab my multi-cut tool, which I'll just go ahead and add to my shelf. I think I already had it there, but that's okay. Create that diamond, and then go around and make all those ingons in the quads. So sometimes what I'll do is once I make those, I'll select all 4 of these points, jump to my scale tool, and just scale them all out equally. And I can pull those guys out a little bit. You know, you may not even need to add that extra edge loop if you don't want to. I'm going to. I can always go in and fix it later if I need to. So then I got some ankles. Looks a little bit round there, so I can always go in with my smooth and start smoothing that out a little bit so it doesn't look so just like a circle. Same thing over here. And usually the ankles are going to be sort of looking at it from the front view. You're always going to have more definition on the bottom of your ankles than you are on the top. So something like that. And these guys are just way out of place, but that's all right. I kind of like the look of that, the little ball of that. I think generally your inside ankle is a lot more pronounced than your outside ankle though. So something like that, starting to look okay. Definitely needs some tweaking, but all in due time. Whenever I'm done with this, the body, I'll probably go and do like sort of what I did with the head and just go through and tweak everything real quick. So the foot, I can go in and let's turn the grid off. Go in and I can start creating that arch of the foot. You know, same thing goes for an area like the heel. If I want to sort of add a little more definition, I can just do something like that. I do that sometimes. I'll select from the bottom and accidentally select up top. You can just control click and get rid of that. So I could probably use another edge loop there and there. Again, you want to go in, once you do something like that, make sure you go in and touch every single vertex you want to manipulate. All right, so I'm going to need some more geometry here for the toes. So I'll go ahead and add an edge loop here. And I probably don't need that to go all the way around like that, so I'll just undo that, and instead I'm just going to use my multi-cut tool and cut that in somewhere. And we'll have that sort of go into that triangle right there and make it a quad. Now this sort of bottom of your feet here, there's like a big fatty area, so I make sure I emphasize that. So it's coming along, starting to look like a big sock. Let's see, start making that arch where the toe is going to be a little bit. It's probably going to come up like that, and then the toe will kind of, do something. The big toe. Size that arch a little bit more. Looks a little bit better. Let's see. We generally have a sort of ball on our foot. Sort of right here we have this ball kind of shape. So I can probably emphasize that a little bit just by bringing that guy out a little bit. I probably need another edge loop in here, so I'll go ahead and create that. It's a little low. I think it should be up higher. All right, I think that's a decent start to the foot. Let's see what time we're at here. We're at 24 minutes. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop here, and we'll pick up with creating the toes.